9440.
4405.
9445.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jon Garlick, and I'm here with Sheriff Matthew Wade, and this is Calhoun County's Most Wanted. Sheriff,
Always good to be on the show, Jim.
always good to have you here. Let's take a quick look at what our count was this past week.
3 arrests brings our count up to 4,966 people arrested since this show has been put on the air. And once again, we can't do it without you, so thank you very much.
Need lots of support from the public, not only to bring people to justice, but now with a new bill coming that's going to take effect next year.
Yeah, some things to know. Heard some things about permitless carry. That bill passed. It was signed by the governor. Some things to know. First of all, it doesn't take effect until January the 1st of 2023. So I wouldn't want people to think it took effect immediately and get themselves in trouble. So, that also, if permits aren't going away, if you need one if you're going to take a weapon into a sporting event or high school sporting event, or if you want to travel to any other states. So they're still available. It's up to you, but that's what the lowdown of it is.
Well, there you go. It won't take effect until January of next year. So you've still got a few months here. You need a pistol permit. You need to go get one. And if you want one after that, you still need to go get one. Support the Sheriff's Office and be legal for the rest of the year. Thank you, Sheriff. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with the first half of our lineup and a really special guest here. So stay with us on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to this week's edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted. First up in our lineup this week, Donald Stillwell. Mr. Stillwell, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted for a probation violation on unlawful of manufacturing of a controlled substance first. And this is Danielle Crawford. Miss Crawford, last known to be living in Tuscaloosa. She's wanted on a probation violation for possession of a controlled substance and possession of marijuana second. And this is Charles Byers. Mr. Byers, last known to be living in Anniston, he's wanted on a probation violation for possession of a controlled substance. Take a look at Casey Kraft. Miss Kraft, last known to be living in Lineville, she's wanted for failure to appear on burglary second and giving a false name to an officer. And this is Todd Atherton. Mr. Atherton, last known to be living in Jacksonville, he's wanted for failure to appear for possession of a controlled substance, possession of marijuana second, and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. And meet Lori Pitts. Miss Pitts, last known to be living in Ohatchee, she's wanted on a probation violation for possession of a controlled substance. And this is Cedric Davis. Mr. Davis, last known to be living in Anniston, he's wanted on a probation violation for obstruction of justice using a false identity. And that's it for the first half of the lineup. Stay tuned for the second half later in the show. Hello and welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup that you know where they are. And if you do, give the sheriff a call. He'll keep them someplace safe as we come into the spring months with all the crazy weather.
You just never know in March.
You never know. Be weather aware.
That's right.
Speaking of being aware, we have Jim Williams here, retired captain, United States Navy, ran for office a couple of times, maybe. I can't remember. Just once. That's usually enough.
That's enough.
Yeah. Sheriff knows all about that.
I do.
Yeah. And been involved in lots of community things, and now you're involved with something else. So tell us what's going on with you.
Well, a couple of months ago, really in connection with an education bill, I became aware of a Facebook group called RSA 2022. And it's basically an advocacy page for retirement systems of Alabama. And there are several things about that in connection with education, but also with the importance of pensions in Alabama that you and I had talked briefly and thought it might be worth coming and talking about a little bit.
Yeah, retirement systems of Alabama, of course, state employees, teacher systems, and employees at the sheriff's office.
That's right.
All are members of RSA, and they're usually a very well-funded program, are they not? Like super funded.
They are.
Yeah.
Whenever there's lots of money, there's lots of people trying to get it.
That is true. That is true. So, Jim, what's the issue, and how does it tie into this education bill?
Well, what a lot of people aren't aware of is the fact that the public school funding, the Educational Trust Fund, is basically the vehicle that funds the retirement systems for teachers. And about 2/3 of the membership of RSA is teachers and school employees. And that is a huge, so what goes into the funding teachers has a big impact on what the present future of retirement systems of Alabama across the board is. And let me just throw out a couple of numbers here to give people some perspective. There are about 9,000 RSA retirees in Calhoun County.
In Calhoun County?
In Calhoun County.
Now, is that teachers or law enforcement or both?
That's all.
Okay.
But again, teachers are about 2/3 of the population.
9,000?
Yes.
Wow.
And the pensions they received last year was about $77 million. Now, and that's about $30,000 or less actually is the average pension. But when you look at the multiplier effect that has on the economy, you can figure about $5 of economic impact for every dollar of pension received. That's about $400 million.
Just for Calhoun
Just
County?
for Calhoun County.
So $400 million worth of economic impact, and
Yes.
that's felt at the stores and mostly the gas stations right now.
Yes.
And where this comes into play, I believe, is a bigger issue of the Educational Trust Fund. There has been years in the past where schools had to go to proration. There wasn't enough money to pay for teachers, there wasn't enough money to pay for staff, equipment, materials for students, and they'd go into proration. Over the past, 10 years or 15 years, we haven't heard that word. The Educational Trust Fund is doing really well, and it's paying for our students' educations. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing in the right way. But when that happens and it gets too much money, there can be bills that come up where people try to take money from the Educational Trust Fund to other projects that will hurt it. And that's what's happening now. Is there's a bill up that's trying to take money from public schools to give to charter schools or private schools. And to me, if you give public money to a private school, it's no longer private, it's a public school. So this is could be very detrimental, not only to the retirement fund, but also to the public education trust fund in general, where it'll take money out of that for public education and give to private schools where people choose to go to and pay for. So once we give money to those private schools, it now becomes public schools, but they still don't have to follow what all the other public schools have to follow. So it's kind of dicey.
Yes.
Yes. So that funding, what you're saying is that we have the Educational Trust Fund, and there's money that comes into that every year through the state Department of Education budget, I'm guessing. And this bill will allow people to take their portion of that money and give it to a private school.
Well, that was the original bill, and the impact would have been estimated was about $400 million a year, which is a very substantial chunk of change when you look at the impact of that. Again, as the sheriff just said, that funding also, the transfer of, basically money follows students from the state. And so the impact would be on public schools would be that students who opted out of the public schools, the money would go with them wherever they went. And the effect of that would be to reduce the amount of funding for teachers. So you basically then have a decrement in the public schools for the teaching and for those other functions of the staff.
Okay.
Now, one thing, the bill has changed, and the latest version of it, Senate Bill 302, simply addresses charter schools. But that also gets into shift of funding from public schooling, because not all charter schools are public schools.
Right. Well, we're going to clarify that and some more stuff on that bill. We're going to take a break now and have the second half of our lineup, but stay with us here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to the second half of our lineup. First up this half, Thomas Sollett. Mr. Sollett, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted for failure to appear on theft by fraudulent leasing. And meet Donnie Maddox Jr. Mr. Maddox, last known to be living in Piedmont. He's wanted on a probation violation for possession of a controlled substance. And this is Mark Brown. Mr. Brown, last known to be living in Oxford, he's wanted on a probation violation for possession of a controlled substance. And please take a look at Shaquanda Alford. Miss Alford, last known to be living in Jonesboro, Georgia. She's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a forged instrument second. And meet Charles Law. Mr. Law, last known to be living in Piedmont. He's wanted for a probation violation on possession of a controlled substance. And this is Tyler Hotchkiss. Miss Hotchkiss, last known to be living in Ohatchee. She's wanted for failure to appear on endangering the welfare of a child. And that's it for our lineup this week. If you have any information on these folks, please call Crime Stoppers. That number, 1-833-251-7867. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup where you know where they are. And if you do, call the sheriff. You call, he hauls. We're here with Jim Williams speaking to us about Senate Bill, 302?
302 is the current version, yes.
302 from the state of Alabama, which has a huge impact on the Educational Trust Fund and might be impacting a school system near you. So when we broke, you were talking about how money follows students. Yes. So that, to me, that seems like a risk for these public schools that already have lost students.
Yes.
And therefore lost state funding. This bill would then encourage the parents of those students to say, I want you to go to another system or another charter school, and that would reduce the money that that original school is getting.
Yes, and one of the concerns that's been raised, and this goes back to the sort of the first steps in this direction several years ago, is the fact that when it's in the public school system, the money basically flows directly from the state to the school system. All of these arrangements that involve some other school, whether it's charter school, private schools, homeschooling, whatever it might have been, involve the transfer of funds basically to a custodian of some kind. And that custodian, private corporation, basically is authorized up to 5% of the money transferred as administrative fees.
So they're going to create a new business for somebody? Is that what you're saying?
Well, this is in effect what it does. Yeah.
Okay. And how much, so if say I was that business and I was getting the money to be a fiduciary and then handing it out to the charter schools that get 5%, what would my take be at 5%? How much would that be worth?
Well, again, it depends on how many schools and entities are at the end of that pipeline where the transfers go, but you can be talking about millions of dollars.
Wow. So we're setting up a business for somebody that could be bringing in millions of dollars of revenue when the system we've got right now is working, right?
Well,
I mean, is it not working?
Well.
What's the complaint? So tell us why are we looking at this bill?
Well, the real concern is, again, the long-term impact on public education, public schools. Charter schools have gotten a lot of hype, I'll put it that way, over a number of years. But when you actually look at the statistics nationally, where their performance standards have been applied, charter schools don't do any better than public schools. So the object of the game was to be able to provide a better educational opportunity for students who were in underperforming schools or who weren't doing well. The issue here is that there's no guarantee that setting up the charter schools is going to get them to a better educational experience.
So the overall complaint from the citizens then is that our public schools are not performing as they should, and that the solution may be to let people take the tax dollars they're paying for public education and give it, now it's only to charter schools is what this bill is doing. Okay, and with the idea that charter schools would do a better job of educating my children. So let's define what a charter school is.
Well, there are two different ways, sort of modes of charter schools. Some, and that's would be the main thrust, would be schools that are already in the public school system, but that elect to become charter schools, which mean they basically go under a different set of rules as far as hiring and curriculum. They're basically, it's I'll use the phrase Montessori school, whatever you want it to be. And this is one issue: is what are the standards for these schools that are receiving public monies? The other are simply private schools that are set up to be operating as private schools, but again, not operating under the same rules as the public schools as far as curriculum and those kinds of things go. And they're currently, I was looking last night, currently, best I can tell, there are 13 schools of that type in Alabama.
13 charter type schools?
Yeah, private charter.
So it probably wouldn't, or maybe it is a big deal for a private school, say, like Donahoe, to say, I want to be a charter school so they can get access to this funding. Is that an easy thing for them to do, maybe? I'm sure it's possible.
Be possible.
So this is a very important bill. People need to be considering this and sending information down to Montgomery to your representatives, whether you are for or against it. It sounds like if it passes, it could change education in a major way and maybe not in a very positive way. So something to think about. We appreciate you letting us know about this, Jim.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll be back with you here right after the Crime Stoppers portion of our show. And Sheriff, we've got a crazy criminal, I'm told. So stay with us here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to the Crime Stoppers portion of our show. First up on your caseload this week, between March 1st and March 2nd, an unknown white male broke into the Angel Grove Baptist Church and stole a red and black medical bag. Please help in identifying this individual. And on February 14th, a black 4x6 single-axle trailer with dual ramps was stolen from a residence on Tredegar Road in Jacksonville. On the same day, a male and female were also seen on a game camera with the very same trailer. And between February 1st and February 2nd, someone stole a 1999 blue Chevrolet Silverado and a Sears rototiller pull-behind lawn tractor attachment from a residence on Rocky Hollow Road in Jacksonville. And that's it for the Crime Stoppers cases. If you have any information on these cases, please call Crime Stoppers. That number, 1-833-251-7867.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
It's crazy criminal time, Sheriff.
We'll start out with a Florida man.
Oh, no.
Named Thomas Colucci, 41, was in a bar, and he had bought some supposedly meth from a guy, and he used some of it, and he said it didn't make him feel the way he thought it should. So he called law enforcement to have them test his meth because he felt like the person had sold him bath salts.
I see.
Well,
fraudulent meth dealer.
Law enforcement responded, as always, and obliged him and tested his bag of substance that was actually methamphetamines, like what he purchased. And with that, a Florida man named Thomas Colucci went to jail for possessing a controlled substance. You know, he wanted the dealer to be in trouble, but he wouldn't give the dealer's name or anything.
Oh,
But he thought he'd been ripped off and wanted some payback. Well, the dealer actually sold him what he was wanting and what he got, and I don't know why it made him feel any different, but the feeling of jail was definitely not what he was expecting.
Well, yeah, he got a different feeling when he went to jail. Oh, the Carlucci family. They're big in Miami.
Yeah, it's always a good story. Always starts with a Florida man.
It does, and felt like he was getting ripped off buying illegal substances. Interesting, isn't it?
It is, but I am proud that law enforcement did respond and did test his
Of course.
his substance, which was fulfilling his request. So
You call, law enforcement responds, right?
That's right, that's right.
Just always. Sometimes we respond just when you need us, right?
just when you need us.
Just when you need us.
Just when you need us.
Well, we appreciate you tuning in to Calhoun County's Most Wanted. We hope to see you again next week, but not in the lineup here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.